non-spoiler review. How many spoilers could there be in Disney's Haunted Mansion? Well, it turns out quite a bit. In fact, I would try to go into this movie as cold as possible, because if you do, you will be in for some delightful surprises. But what did I think of the movie overall? Well, that's why we're having a non-spoiler review. All right, so I thought that the trailers and posters for Disney's new Haunted Mansion, I saw the old Haunted Mansion, it was okay. This is an improvement on that film. But I thought that when the trailers and posters came out, I was like, wow, those are surprisingly good. And it gave me a lot of hope for the film. I was, in fact, hoping for a movie on the level of the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, which has been on my mind because someone on Twitter recently pointed out that one of the reasons that movie is so great and was so well received is that even though it's a Disney movie based on one of their attractions, it's also a legit pirate movie with the scope and budget of a major blockbuster. And interestingly, Haunted Mansion, which comes out 20 years later, cost a little bit more than the first Pirates of the Caribbean, not counting for inflation. And it would seem that $150, because it hasn't been that much inflation, but it would seem that $150 doesn't buy what it used to. Because unfortunately, this movie seems much smaller in scope. I would say it plays more like a really good Disney Plus movie. Like if you were watching this on Disney Plus, you'd be like, wow, could this have been released in theaters? And I'm telling you, I guess it could have, but it doesn't need to be. I guess it starts that journey. I guess it gives Haunted Mansion the cachet of being a theatrical release. But I have some problems with the film, and they're pretty easy to fix, so it's a little bit frustrating that they're there. But it does not feel like a legit theatrical release. Not to say that the film isn't entertaining and doesn't have its moments. It certainly does. It's just not at the level that I was hoping it would be. So I would definitely recommend that you check out Haunted Mansion at some point. There's no need to see it in theaters unless you're looking for a reason to go to the movies. It's summer. This is going to play in Dolby. It's fun to put your feet up with some popcorn and a fizzy soda, as we all know. Or maybe you're a big Disney fan or a Haunted Mansion fan. This will certainly scratch that itch. But you don't even have to pay for this on digital, because eventually it's going to get to Disney Plus at no extra cost. And it looks like that might be just in time for Halloween. And at that point, this movie will be an absolute banger. You will be delighted. I bet they spend more money advertising that it's on Disney Plus than, in theaters. It could even be like an Encanto, which only did okay in theaters, but then exploded once it hit the streaming service. But that, of course, is a legit, very well-made movie. And this is a legit, it's more of a streaming movie. All right, so let's start with what I liked about the film, because I want to keep it positive, but then we will address what I did not care for. So, the good. This film is actually pretty scary. And I tweeted that, and some of you are like, what, Grace, you're a wimp. But it's not hide your eyes and scream scary. No. I'm talking like a really macabre ghost story that goes super dark. I was really surprised how dark it went. I was like, wow, I can't believe this is in a Disney movie. But I liked it, and it has tons of ghosts, very good VFX to realize them, and an absolutely wonderful and captivating villain in the Hatbox Ghost, brought to life by Jared Leto. Complete with creepy flashbacks. I love the flashback sequence in this movie so much. I'm going to see it again, probably multiple times, because I think it's going to become like my Halloween movie, because I don't have enough of those. And the flashback is what I'm most looking forward to seeing again, because I was like, wow, this is cool. On that note, the production design is also fantastic, very much evoking the Haunted Mansion attraction, but also, I would say, classic scary movies, particularly the 1940s and 50s. A lot of the 1960s and 70s horror films have been getting some love from Hollywood lately, particularly from the Italian ones. But this was great to look back to I'm talking about the classic 40s and 50s, Gaslight or The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, but more than that, but the elegance of those movies. And I love that. This movie is atmosphere, and that was great. And the shout-outs to the Haunted Mansion attraction are super fun. Now, I'm not a super fan of the Haunted Mansion, but even I, as a casual fan, got a lot of the references. And I really loved that aspect of the film. There was one in particular that was such a surprise and absolutely delighted me as a fan of the Disney World Haunted Mansion. That's all I'll say. But I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. So I would imagine that super fans of the Haunted Mansion will have even more Easter eggs for them to spot. I've always been a little creeped out by the Haunted Mansion, to be honest with you, and I don't like to go on it with the exception of the Disneyland Paris one, which I really like because it's about a bride and it has like a gothic romance aspect to it. So I like that one. But the other ones, I'm always like, I don't know. I mean, I like it when they're done. The Disneyland one is done for Nightmare Before Christmas. But even that, I'm like, I don't go on it every time. I'm just like, yeah. But this actually made me like the Haunted Mansion a little bit more. I was like, maybe I will go on next time I'm in a Disney park, right? And I heard that they're adding the Hatbox Ghost to the ride, and I'm very excited. I'm very excited to see that because I liked the character so much. And I'm so happy for LaKeith Stanfield to have a role like this. He is a proper leading man here, and he does a fantastic job. He has a romantic interest. He's really funny. We all know he can be very funny. He's so funny here. You feel real compassion for his character, who definitely has a full story arc with intense character development. I mean, what a role for LaKeith Stanfield to sink his teeth into. And he has multiple hero moments. It was an absolute delight. Then also the human cameos. There are some really fun surprise cameos here from some pretty big names. Although, if you've seen the final trailer for Haunted Mansion, it spoils them all. So I hope you didn't see it. But I was surprised when I saw my press screening. And it was so fun to see them just pop out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Their cameos, though, are extremely short. So once you've seen them, like just seen them, you've basically seen the cameo. So again, I hope those aren't ruined for you. Spotlighting New Orleans. I love New Orleans. I got to visit before Hurricane Katrina, years before Hurricane Katrina, and it was one of my favorite trips I ever took. The city left a huge impression on me. It was just glorious. And I actually had the opportunity to go a few years right after Hurricane Katrina, and it was very sad to see what had happened to that city, both because of the environmental tragedy and disaster that it had suffered, but also because of the intense failure of government. But I'm glad to see that New Orleans has not given up and it is still working to bounce back, which it is still to do all these years later, which, I haven't had a chance to return yet, but you can even see when you see movies filmed there, like Renfield was recently filmed there, and it just isn't the same. But it still has remnants of that original magic, and I hope someday that it does get back to where it was. In fact, though, watching this movie, it made me wish for a Princess and the Frog sequel or a live-action adaptation. And I look very much forward to the upcoming attraction and restaurants that they're building at the various parks. I mean, I was like, oh, that would be so cool. It felt very Princess and the Frog at points. Dr. Facilier is one of the best Disney villains, period. And this movie reminds me of him especially because, he has those darker undertones to his stuff as well. And his scenes are particularly scary. I loved it. And then the movie is actually pretty clever. I liked how they got everyone to stay at the house. You think everyone would just run out and never come back, but I think that was quite clever what they decided to do. And I thought the overall story was interesting, and I especially liked the backstories for all the ghosts, and when they talked about the history of the house and some of the ghosts that were haunting it, I was like, that's pretty cool. Because I'm someone who loves ghost stories, and I grew up reading ghost stories, so I just love them. So I enjoyed also that aspect of the film quite a bit. This is a lot of positive. What could I possibly dislike about the film? Well, here we go. So the bad. The film was very small in scope, as I said. When they're shooting outside of the Haunted Mansion, it seems like a TV movie. Like, it's actually pretty bad when they're outside of the mansion. I mean, it got better because I liked LaKeith Stanfield so much, but I was like, this movie it looks so cheap when they're outside the house. I can't believe, I've been like, I'll give you $20 million more or whatever you need because, we just can't release this like that. But then when you're in the Haunted Mansion, while the production design is incredible, as I said, it really feels like you're on a sound stage because, quite frankly, the rooms are too big. Now, of course, sometimes, this is supposed to be like a plantation house, and those, of course, were big, but they were never this big. This isn't a castle. And then also, it just feels, instead of like an actual building, like the furniture is spaced out and the rooms are so big to give room to do camera placement and the dolly tracks and all that. So you're like, this is more of like a theatrical stage. Not for like a theatrical movie, but for like a stage for a play. it just takes you out of the movie. I wish that would have not been the case. Then the film, this was surprising. The film is way too sad for a family movie. Oh, so sad. Now, no spoilers, but let's just say that it focuses on actual death way too much, especially for a movie where you're supposed to be having fun. Now, not to say that storyline isn't handled well. It is handled very well. That's part of what makes it especially sad. It really gives you the feels. You know, maybe you like the Pixar. If you like the opening of Up, maybe you'll love this. But I was just like, man, I signed up for a movie about a Disney ride and to see some ghosts, and you're making me really sad. All right, then also, the rest of the cast, the human cast, not the cameos, but the actual cast, they're not that great. Rosario Dawson is, you know, really, I was a little frustrated about her character. We'll talk about that more in the spoiler review. But she isn't really, we're doing a spoiler review, but she isn't really given anything to do and is sidelined as the mom. I was like, Rosario Dawson, that's Ahsoka, man. Put some respect on her name. She deserves more than this. Although, of course, she was wonderful in the scenes that she did have because she's Rosario freaking Dawson. While Tiffany Haddish's costume design was pretty great. But while Tiffany Haddish, Owen Wilson, and Danny DeVito are all certainly game, their lines are just not funny. They're actually a couple of times you're like, wah, wah. You're like, really? I mean, can't we just let them improv? Because I'm sure they could come up with something better than this. They're just really there to take up space and because you need multiple people to haunt. But Jamie Lee Curtis gets her own category because she was truly awful here. I was one of the people who was disappointed that she won over Angela Bassett for Best Supporting Actress last year at the Oscars. I felt that was, I didn't feel that was the correct winner. But after I saw Jamie Lee Curtis on season 2 of The Bear with her guest spot, I was like, you know what? Maybe Jamie Lee Curtis is great. I was getting on the Jamie Lee Curtis train. Toot toot. But after seeing her in this movie, I was like, nope, she's still pretty uneven. She's not good. It was so bad. It was so bad that if they couldn't have gotten a better performance out of her, I would have been like, okay, Jamie, thank you. And then I would have brought another actress in to do it instead because she just pulls the movie down because she's playing such a crucial role from the attraction. And she's awful. All right, so again, if you're a Disney fan and or a Haunted Mansion fan or like ghost stories or maybe all three, then this is worth checking out. Even if you just like Halloween or are looking for a good Halloween movie, this is worth your time. But whenever you want to watch it, it could be seen in any format. It's really what is most convenient, I would say, for you. Theaters, digital, or streaming. Maybe multiples of those. Maybe multiples. But yeah, that's my non-spoiler review of Haunted Mansion. But it was so beautiful in some spots. Again, if you're a fan of any of the things that I mentioned, you kind of have to see it. I mean, some of the sequences were really cool. And there's this candle, which is adorable. All right, so anyway, that's my review of Haunted Mansion. Share your own thoughts down below, but no spoilers. Subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.